have one. It's the best. Sitting down actually puts me to sleep. So good morning, everyone. So I was asked to share or to tell a story, and so I was going to tell my story, but Solomon kind of stole my thunder there a little bit. It's okay, it's all right. You know, I wasn't sure about the format. You know how these things are. We have to be flexible, and so essentially what I wanted to do is tell you my story and about some of the challenges I had in getting to where I am now. So my earliest memories were basically visiting my father in federal prison, unfortunately. So my mother was doing what she could to kind of keep the family together. Me and my little brother were living with her in the projects in El Paso, Texas. And so, but my mother had the foresight and the wherewithal to actually put me into a Head Start program. And before Head Start, she actually taught me to read at home. So I was way ahead of all the kids for years and years, and it really gave me a head start on all my peers. And so that really, I think, carried through to my educational success and my professional success. But one of the things that I do have some talking points, I want to try to stick to them a little bit. My mother eventually, as Solomon mentioned, was able to start a business. So what she did was she really understood how to create value, and she didn't have a high school diploma. So and the reason that I do what I do is because I really believe that self-employment and entrepreneurship is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter how many degrees you have or how few degrees you have like she did. If you know how to create value, if you understand your customer, and you really know how to follow through on things, have determination, perseverance, you can do it. We talked about the challenges that Latinos have scaling businesses. Well, she was able to do it. She took this little operation where she was renting a little space in the corner of a warehouse, and she bought eventually a building the size of a city block and had about 150 employees. This is during, right before NAFTA, so this is like the 90s down in El Paso. We had a lot of clothing that passed through there. Before NAFTA, the manufacturers would make it in Mexico, bring it across as unfinished goods, and so she was part of that value chain. She understood that. Remember, she didn't go to business school like I did, but she understood how to add value, and what she did is she basically asked her boss to lay her off from a job and give her a contract so she could actually scale this business, and actually she saw the potential as a business owner to make a lot more than she was as a W-2 employee. So that was really what inspired me to do what I do, is she was able to really pull us out of poverty, and really we moved out of the projects. Now something that came along also that helped stabilize my family was my stepdad. My dad came along, he really helped her to scale the business and really stabilize our family. But if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't be where I am now. And so I was asked to talk to you guys a little bit about workforce development. So my program, the Small Business Development Center, is hosted by the Workforce Development Board here in Contra Costa. So what we do is we help people to find employment, and we're on the other side where we actually are creating jobs, like most of the small business owners and leaders here. It's really, really exciting for me because it really is an amazing fit. My mission, though, is really to empower people. That's really why I do what I do. Just like my mother, the example she gave me was to pull ourselves out of poverty. Well, I really try to do the same thing. When I was at Meda, working mostly with Latino entrepreneurs, it was all about that. And then moving to Renaissance, it was just moving up and having a bigger impact. And then here, same thing. For me, it's not about me. It's really about how do I sort of pay it forward. Philanthropy is more than just money. It's also about giving knowledge, networks, really, again, empowering people. And so that's really what my mission is. So I was asked to give you guys a few sort of takeaways, maybe some actionable items. And one of the things that I know was really helpful for me as I moved forward in my career was really understanding myself, self-awareness. So in our culture, we don't necessarily value self-improvement and really reflecting and understanding what's important to us. We usually have the values that are very common, family and austerity, and I got a lot of those in my when I was growing up, hard work, education. Those are all things that were really important to me, but it wasn't until I landed here when I was about 18, and I moved out of El Paso, which is like 83% Mexican-American, and I came here, and all of a sudden I was in the minority. Well, I didn't have my family around me. I wasn't defined by them anymore. I didn't have anybody to give me that advice and that guidance, and so it was really up to me. And what I was able to do was thankfully find people who really encouraged me to look into things like our personality test. So one of the big ones I'm a big fan of is called StrengthsFinder. So those of you guys that don't know StrengthsFinder, this is used at a lot of colleges and universities these days to help kids, younger people, to understand their strengths as opposed to their weaknesses. So in our educational system, as most of you know, we tend to remediate, right? Oh, you're not good at reading? Well, take more reading classes. You're not good at math? Take more math classes. This really flips that on its head and says, no, focus on what you're good at, and then your career will also kind of unfold itself, right? So if you're not good at math, don't become an accountant. You'll be miserable, right? So this helps with that. But there's also a DISC, and there's Briggs-Meyer. I've taken them all several times, and I encourage all of you guys to tell Latinos to do this stuff. It's really important that we know ourselves, especially people under 25. I personally have given the StrengthsFinder book to dozens of people that I've mentored, and someone just gave me this book. I'm about to take it myself. This is called Born to Build. I'll talk about this a little bit later. But so the other thing about these kinds of personality tests is we really want Latinos to share that information, validate it, right? So if we're going to show up as our best selves in our personal and professional lives, we need to make sure that we're talking to people about these results and say, hey, does that sound like me? And people say, well, yeah, it does. It's good. Okay, so I know what I need to really work on. So let's see. Oh, yeah, this is another point related to that. Sharing that information is really important because, unfortunately, we tend to be very humble, and we also tend to be very shy. So we can't afford to be shy, and we can't afford to be humble as Latinos, okay? So let's see, another thing that I'm really encouraging everyone here to do, we're all in desperate need of more role models and more mentors. This has come up a couple of times, which I thought was really cool. It's kind of validated my talk here. My career really didn't take off until I found, really, mentors found me. The sad thing is they weren't Latinos. They were people who really took an interest in me. They saw a lot of passion and a lot of energy, and they said, man, that person really needs a lot of help, so I'm going to help them, which is great. It works. There's this law of attraction, right? So those of you that believe in this, yeah, put it, whatever energy you put out there comes back to you, and I've been very, very fortunate to have mentors find me. But let's see, just to ground the conversation again, guys, this is about workforce development, okay? And so in the workforce world, we used to talk about soft skills, right? Soft skills are like communication and working in teams and those kinds of things. Over the years, they've actually become essential skills. So what's happened is because of the studies into emotional intelligence, we find that the most important factor in the success of any person in any organization is emotional intelligence, right? So how do we, as Latino leaders, really encourage others around us to think about those essential skills? So right now, technology and innovation is really affecting our world and changing the workforce world faster than our institutions can keep up with it. And so the only way that we're going to fill that 6.2 million figure that was put up with the skills gap, it's actually 6.8 million now, okay? So it's almost 7 million. It's ridiculous. And so to compound that problem, this is a challenge for every worker, is that there isn't a lot of professional development happening in the professional world. What's happening now in every sector, private, public, nonprofit, is people are hiring for experience, and that's it. They're like, can you do the job? Cool. If you can't do it, you're not going to get the job. So there are very few managers that understand how to develop talent and how to bring people up and give them a chance. So what I'm encouraging all of you guys to do is think about the skills that are going to be really important in our new economy. And so these are things like problem solving, creativity, and leadership. I've heard leadership talk, I've brought up a few times. A real quick aside, I'll tell any young person who'll listen to me is do not go into a career that is a rote or repetitive task, okay? So the one that everybody knows is manufacturing, right? So everybody knows the manufacturing jobs have gone away. Unfortunately, they've been replaced by automation, by robots. And so another industry that's actually under a lot of pressure is accounting. I don't know if you guys know this, but accountants are getting laid off in droves because it can be done by an algorithm, right? So don't do anything that's rote or repetitive. And that brings me back to this sort of third thing I'm hoping you guys will all take away from here is focus on creativity and leadership. It's big picture thinking. That's really what it's all about. So this position that I'm in now, it didn't exist when I was in college. It just didn't exist at all. But I worked on those skills and my ability to be influential, my ability to think creatively, and more importantly, to figure out how to get around, through problems is really what allowed me to do this job. And so I'm encouraging all of you to really think about how we can encourage Latinos, again, particularly those under 25, to be big picture thinkers and to not be afraid of leadership. This is a really important thing. I think sometimes we as Latinos can be afraid of our own power. And this is something that I think I've learned is somebody talked about the relationship with money. This is true. That's self-awareness, whether your own relationship with money, your ability to ask for money, to pay it forward and to leverage it and to say, look, I'm gonna have an impact in this world and this is why you wanna give money to my program. That's a challenge. It was a challenge for me when I started doing fund development. But I think overall, we as Latinos, I think, have a lot of challenges, and a lot of them come from really good places. Again, we tend to be austere, we tend to be humble, we tend to focus on family and not on ourselves. But those things tend to get in the way when we aspire to leadership. And one of the reasons that I've actually been fortunate enough to get into these leadership positions because they keep thrust in front of me. They keep saying, hey, we want you to be on this board. We want you to be on this committee. And the reason I say yes is because I feel that it's important to give a voice to people that don't have a voice, which is one of the reasons I'm also here. And so I was asked to call out an employer that is doing a lot of really good things for Latinos in the workforce. And so it was mentioned that I serve on the board of Travis, so I'm a volunteer for them. They don't pay me, but I definitely believe in a lot of things they're doing. So a couple of things. they do a Cal Grant event where they bring in high school students. And I've talked at that event a couple times, and it's awesome. It's about really helping high school kids understand the importance of the FAFSA, getting financial aid so they can get Cal Grants, maybe Pell Grants, but more importantly, get on that pathway so they can get into a career. They also really do a whole lot around things with financial literacy for people of all ages. They have an awesome cause, which is around education, financial literacy, and financial advocacy. And the thing that's probably the most encouraging and exciting for me, they have about 650 employees. And what they're doing right now is something that I thought already existed. They're actually developing a program to teach financial literacy to all their employees, okay? No credit union has ever done this, and remember, credit unions are all co-ops, they're all nonprofits, and their overarching mission is people helping people. But this financial literacy thing is hugely important. It's the kind of thing that NCUA, the National Credit Union Association, is the one that guarantees the loans and sort of make sure that we're compliant. They're actually coming in and actually tracking this program because they want to blow it up and show it to the whole country because it's a model. So I just want to thank you guys for your attention and thank you all for your leadership. And it's a real honor to be here. Thank you all for making this happen. And again, thank you for your attention, guys.